Whispers of the Necroot by Vexorus, an original horror story. I grew up reading the stories of brave knights slaying dragons and rescuing princesses, the tales of brave adventurers wandering into the darkest depths and uncovering ancient scrolls and weapons. I was never supposed to touch these stories. In fact, I stole them from my grandfather. I idolized these guys. You see, our town was governed by a lack of fiction. There was a ceremony where the village elders burned countless books, where generation after generation aged without even once knowing what a minotaur was. The storytellers in the tavern were slaughtered to prevent the spread of legends. I remember my grandfather's words perfectly, one of the last things he ever told me before passing away.
"My child, you must be wary of the eyes of the forest. There are things out there that wish to hurt you. This world is a very cruel place for those damned with curiosity. Beautiful may it be, it is filled with a bitter darkness, an unforgiving hatred for the self-proclaimed legend. My boy, you must not be a hero. Heroes learn very quickly what is reality. Heroes learn how barbaric nature may be and the destruction caused by tampering with it. A test of human contradiction. There are things we tried to protect you from, but there is only so much we are able to do. You are safe here, abstaining from exploration. For the sake of your health, never, ever wander from the village."
You know, I wanted to believe him, but then again, why was I being punished for my curiosity? All I wanted to do was find gold and help my village. I could be the hero who strikes it rich and saves our culture, bringing education and exotic foods. What could possibly be wrong with that? You know what? I'm taking his sword and going on an adventure. I'm going into the forest and I'm not coming back until I find something cool. I'm gonna leave tomorrow morning. I'll pack up my backpack with all sorts of cool snacks and stuff to take along my journey. It'll be so cool. I'm gonna prove everyone wrong. Dense, lush, and verdant, the forest feels as though it's calling out to me, beckoning for me to trudge further. The air is disgustingly humid, where sweat trails from my forehead to my chin. I swallow a hard lump, struggling to breathe against the balance between rich oxygen and drowning from the moisture in the air. It feels like I'm swimming. Mosquitoes and gnats slowly wither away at my body. Their wings buzz and drone around my head, biting into my skin and leaching the blood from within. Swarms of bugs latch onto my drenched arms. At every instance, I struggle to march through the density of the foliage, hacking away at the overgrown ferns and branches that are in my way. I feel inklings of physical touch, the tiny skittering of insects crawling across my legs and neck, sending shivers down my spine as I furiously scratch away the itching sensation. Dozens of birds shriek around me, calling out to me and echoing my name. I feel as though I'm being watched as I dart my head around. Monkeys laugh and play around me, but everything feels so sinister. Whatever is around me is avoiding my vision. Maybe my grandfather was right. This is horrible. A soft rumbling emanates from the heart of the forest, a growl of sorts. A bassy earthquake through the trees, causing leaves to scatter towards the ground. Whether this is from a creature or the sheer emotion shed from Mother Nature is astounding. While it shook me to my core, I found myself interested in what it was. This otherworldly lullaby, the war drums of the wild. My eardrums rattled, attuning to the undulating rhythm of the unknown. In any case, birds scatter out of the trees and into the sky. I should have seen this as a warning sign, but I wasn't going to let something like a twinge of doubt stop me in my treasonous exploration. So I marched on. Holding my sword in front of me and whacking away at the overgrowth, sticks crumble beneath my little boots as I leave a trail of tiny water droplets behind me. After a few minutes of walking, I glance behind me to memorize my surroundings. I swear I saw that rock before. I never really thought about the possibility of getting lost out here. I know that when I left my village from the east, so I checked my compass. All I needed to do was go west. With that, I pulled my backpack off of my sticky body and fished for my compass. When I finally grab it and attempt to write it, the needle wouldn't stop spinning wildly. The thing was going nuts! I let out a huge sigh, inviting in a whole new set of fears, knowing this might have been incredibly irresponsible. My stomach drops and my skin prickles with a creeping anxiety. I need to find a way out of here. As long as I head backwards, I should be alright. Over the course of the next hour, I wander through the wild overgrowth, swatting away mosquitoes and narrowly avoiding snakes that slither in the trees. I feel tears well up in the corners of my eyes as I trudge forwards. The trees and ferns around me seem to be growing taller and meaner, and they seem to be lording over me, crowding around me, and showing me just how small I was out here. The sensation of being watched creeps back towards me as I quicken my pace, looking for anything to use as shelter. Frantically sprinting towards the forest and letting the breeze wick away the sweat and dirt from my face, I begin to hear inklings of whispering around me, entirely unintelligible conversation. I stop and attempt to listen to the creature. I dart my head around, breathing hard and heavy, exhausted and out of breath. Straining my ears, I can't seem to track down the location of the whispering. It seems as if it's coming from all around me. I slowly start walking forward once more. Through the foliage, I begin to notice seemingly dozens of large mushrooms around me. These are unlike anything I had seen before. They're about the size of a basketball and every color of the rainbow. The mushrooms are vibrant reds, greens, blues, yellows, purples, and more. Every single one of them has speckles of white spots all over the cap. The stems are stark white and lanky, no thicker than the length of my finger. On each of these plants is one giant, sinister eyeball staring directly into my eyes. The eyes are wild and curious, each a different color of the rainbow, matching the mushrooms around it. The sunlight glistened off of each of them. As I saw dozens of these things watching me, slack-jaw and singing a scream, these things shrieked in return, mocking me. I start sprinting, stumbling over roots and rocks, scraping my knees as I flee away from the sardonic gaze. The whispering grows louder, calling to me, a tiny devil upon my ears. I must have been running for a few seconds before I ran upon a clearing between the trees. The strange part about this clearing was that there seemed to be the beating of jungle drums around my skull, a thumping that progressively sedated me. Something about it made me feel mellow and tired, but my heart pounded regardless. The clearing contained cobbled together stone bricks, overgrown with vines as if nature was reclaiming them. It was reclaiming a man-made structure. This may have once functioned as a temple, but now it seems to be a broken prison. Scattered across the stone are broken chains and barbed harpoons longer than my entire body. Fresh black blood coats the spikes dripping onto the stone beneath it. The harpoons were attached to a chain embedded into the walls of the stone ruins around me. Once again, I heard a mighty growl echo through the forest and my stomach dropped. Trees groaned and snapped behind me, a tremendous force shattering the branches behind me. Quickly, I shoot my eyes back to focus on a behemoth of shambling rot, an amalgamation of necrotic fungus and moss, a crude nightmare of lumbering hatred. This monster had to be near 12 feet tall, lording over my figure, even from the distance that it's at. Brackish vines lash out and whip around the trees in its path, while the identical eyes from the mushrooms cover its body and tentacles. The pythonic abyssalite roars out towards me, eyes locking with mine as its blackened maw snaps countless teeth towards me. Some of the barbed harpoons are still embedded deep within this thing, while the broken chains whip around wildly. This was something straight out of a nightmare. Where I started running once more, I clutched the sword, unsure of what the hell to even do here. The creature shambled behind me, causing chaos to all of its branches, to all the things that it bashes into, leaving a trail of blackened slime behind it. Snot pours out of my nose as I sob wildly. All I can do is run away. So I did just that. I ran as fast as I could, but these creatures seemed to be picking up speed behind me, closing in the distance. Eventually, I took one more look back at the creature, filling my vision once more with this necrotic nightmare. Still being chased at a rapid pace, I found myself suddenly falling down a tiny cliff. The whispers of the mushrooms echo around me as I snap my gaze towards the ground to brace my impact. Beneath me were dozens of these plants staring at me with their beady eyeballs. They seemed to be shrieking alongside me, where I collapse into the fuzzy mass. I must have fallen close to 10 feet, but I still hit my shoulder really hard. Immediately my skin begins to sting and numb at the same time. Their words grow louder. I glance down at my calves to see a horrific sight. My skin is progressively turning black and melting off of my body as if it were rotting. Soon I saw bone. I let out a scream in pain where I slammed my hands down on these creatures to help myself stand up. The skin around my fingers began to rot away, leaving thin traces of bone visible. My hands lock up, but I manage to shamble my way out of the mushrooms, blood pouring out of me like a fountain as my skin withered away. Every step I managed allowed for more muscle tissue to slosh off of me, hitting the dirt in patches of vague green and pink like spoiled pork. I weeped out for anyone to help me, and sure enough, I hear slight shifting through the nearby bushes. Shambling out of the bushes is a hunched-over, ash-colored woman. Her hair is very dirty and black in most places, with dreadlocks that run down past her hips and to her calves. Her hair is stained a deep swamp green and black. Weaved between her hair is a yellow flower with 5 petals, appearing to move up and down along her head as if her hair was moving. She had white war paint splashed across her face, with red splotches around her eyes, revealing a deep hazel and wide pupils. She has what looks to be a small animal bone that pierces through her septum. She wears tight but flowing red and gold-painted robes, with a large silver necklace displaying an elaborate symbol. She holds in her left hand a massive club in the shape of a staff, with a thick vine that coils up to the top. The head of the staff contains a curved wooden horn. In her right hand, she contains a talisman of a chain of what seems like rat skulls that rattle towards me. I lock eyes with the source of the movement from her hair. It is an interwoven snake, bobbing its head like a charm towards me.
It is very dangerous to wander off into the forest like that. You've gotten hurt and that's your fault.
My name is Nazebo and I am one of the guardians of the forest.
You touched the Necroot. What fuck is wrong with you?
Taken aback by this woman, I took a few seconds to attempt to believe that all of the events that just happened actually happened. I managed to paint, thank you for finding me. I was running away from this thing, and I fell. Please, can you help me?
Stupid boy! You are here at the wrong place and the wrong time. You came across Squishy, my pet. He is a little cranky because I forgot to feed him. But do you hear me, Squishy? We do not eat little boys anymore. I started you on that new diet. Come, rotten thing. Nyoka and I will fix you up. Come.
Soon after Nazebo finished, I fell unconscious. I don't remember being patched up, but I remember waking up at the entrance of the forest. Most of my body is bandaged up, and I was incredibly sore everywhere in my body. I righted myself and peeled away at the bandages slightly. It seems that most of my muscles have regenerated, as if it was all a horrible dream. Glancing further into the forest, I couldn't spot the strange woman or the necrotic fungus behemoth. I still had my backpack and sword in my hands. My grandfather was right. History deserves to be forgotten. Heroes shouldn't exist.